friends, welcome and welcome back. My name is Chelsea. It is time to talk about the first reading month of 2026. In the month of January, I read 7 books and I DNF'd 1 book, which is quite an improvement for me. I'm already holding on to my goal of DNFing more this year, so in the right direction. Right, the first book I read in January was The Winners by Frederick Bachman. This is the 3rd book in the Beartown trilogy. I listened to this on audio. I've listened to the whole series on audio. In fact, I believe I've listened to every Frederick Bachman book that I've read on audio. I liked this. I don't think it's as necessary as books 1 and maybe even book 2. Like, I think he could have stopped before this, but I liked it. We are following the characters when they're a little bit older, and just like all of his other books, it's extremely well written. He makes every side character a main character, keeps you on the edge of your seat wondering what's happening, because he kind of alludes to certain things, and then but he doesn't really tell you exactly what happened. Unfortunately, it's the 3rd book in a series, so I can't tell you that much, but very good. Highly recommend, and I'm glad to have this series finished. When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. Yes, finally read this book. I've been wanting to read this for a while. I actually already owned 2 copies of this and still hadn't read it. Favorite romantasy. This is a favorite romantasy. I don't know about all time. Not a lot happens in this book, actually. It's a very slow moving book, and I think that is to its benefit, because other books that are romantasy, they seem like they just dump a lot of stuff in that first book, and then the second book slumps because so much happened in the first book. There's nothing left to happen in the second book. This follows our main character, who is an assassin, and then she gets pulled out of that real fast. That was a little disappointing because I love an assassin story, but I was still interested in what was going on, so I think she did a really good job there. And the whole story, we're trying to figure out kind of like what happened to her in her past. She doesn't remember. We don't really know. We're getting hints. I think it was really, really well done, and I cannot wait to read book 2. My DNF was The Atlas Complex by Livy Blake. It has been so long since I read books 1 and 2 that by the time I started reading book 3, I could not remember anything that happened before, and I frankly don't care anymore. I'm going to keep these books. I kept this book on my shelf because I did read books 1 and 2 and I liked them, but I just have no desire to know what happens in this story. I don't understand where we're going. There doesn't seem to be any idea of where we're going with this. Just feels all over the place, and it's not grounded enough for me to be invested in it. I read a nonfiction called The Collapse of Parenting. I don't remember who wrote that. I don't know, you'll have to Google it. I'm not going to talk about this too much because I don't know if anybody who has kids is watching this, but if you guys do want me to talk about my nonfiction parenting books that I do read, let me know. This was okay. I had some huge issues with the way that this was written. He was a pediatrician for a long time, and he was using his observations of the patients in his clinic to talk about behavior, and basically that Americans' parenting is very flawed. It's too permissive. We're letting kids get away with too much, and that's causing tons of issues. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but his comparison is to many decades ago where people didn't use, he's trying to advocate for authoritative parenting, which is the ideal version of parenting in my opinion, but he's using the justification of many decades ago where many parents weren't using authoritative, they were using authoritarian. Kids were getting physically injured for not listening to their parents, and so they complied out of fear. not because they were cooperating with a strong leadership figure parent. So if you read this, I just took bits and pieces from it that I agreed with, and I'm leaving all the rest behind. Next, I read 9 Goblins by T. Kingfisher. This was an anticipated release for the month of January for me. I did not realize that this is a novella. So, very short. It was cute, it was fun. Not an all-time favorite. There are very few novellas that I love. I like more story. I like a little bit more meat on there. We are following these goblins who find themselves in an unfortunate situation, and they are trying to find their way back home, but they come across a bad magical situation, and they're trying to kind of figure out what happens there. It gets wrapped up real fast. It is a novella. It's a cute little story, but there isn't much to it to talk about, especially when I don't want to spoil it for you guys. So if you like T. Kingfisher, I recommend maybe borrow this. It's full price, like over $20 for like 150 pages. So I would borrow it or buy it, you know, if it ever gets available on Book Outlet or something. All right, next I finally finished Empire of the Dawn by J. Kristoff. This was so good, guys. I love this trilogy. The whole time you're reading it, right? From book 1, you know that there has to be an ace up this guy's sleeve. Because otherwise there wouldn't be a story, right? Like, but, oh my gosh, did it deliver. Now, I don't know how to hold up on reread because of the way this ending is, but I'm really curious, and I will be rereading this so that I can pick back through to find the little nuggets. This was fantastic. I have a reading vlog up about it if you want to know more about my thoughts. I highly recommend this series to basically anyone who reads fantasy. I think it's extremely well done. I loved it. I went to one of the book tour events for this and got to meet him and have my book signed. Highly, highly recommend. Oh, and I forgot I actually have the physical copy out for you guys. And I love this cover so much. So awesome. All right, next, Only Ashes Remain by Rebecca Schaefer. I did not like this. I didn't love the first one either, but we kept going because my friend and I wanted to read this together. Okay. There could have been a change to the end of book 1 and there would be no reason to have books 2 or 3 at all. The conflict, the problem, the main problem in this book should not exist, okay? I don't understand why she went this way. This doesn't make any sense. The character makes decisions that don't make sense. There's no emotional depth to this story, in my opinion. I don't care about these characters. Our main character seems to be kind of psychopathy, but then she doesn't, then every once in a while she's like, oh, does this make me a bad person? But there's no like feeling, right? She's not like conflicted about the decision she's making, right? She's just wondering if it makes her a bad person or not. We will be finishing this trilogy because my friend cannot walk away from it, which is totally fine. But I will not even be keeping these books because I don't want my kid reading this. I don't think this is good enough to encourage my child to read as a young adult. I think this could have been a really cool story if it had gone a lot deeper, a lot darker, basically as an adult novel. As a YA, I don't think the story holds because the content is adult level, but because it's a YA, it can't go that far, if that makes sense. So I don't recommend. I do recommend her City of Nightmares duology because that's just a fun, silly time. Right. And the last book I read in January was Heretics of Dune by Frank Herbert. This is the 5th book in the Dune series. This was okay. I liked some of the previous books a lot more, and in fact, if I were not committed to just finishing the 6 that Frank Herbert wrote, I would probably have stopped this book. I just really want to read the ones that he wrote and see where he left the story at. But this, they did not go into how this ties into book 4. We do not understand why the main character in book 4 made the decisions that he made yet. Maybe we get there, but this was a whole lot of nothing in my opinion. So we'll have to see what happens in book 6 to see if they tie in. I think that if you're gonna read Dune and you don't care about completing Frank Herbert's work, you could stop at book 1. I think it's worth going to book 4. Currently, I would not recommend book 5, but once I finish 6, I will let you guys know if I think that it's worth pushing all the way through 6. That is everything I read in January. My favorite read was probably Empire of the Dawn, but When the Moon Hatched is a very close second. And then my least favorite, is either Only Ashes Remain or The Collapse of Parenting. I had some serious issues with that book. So if you're not going to read parenting books, Only Ashes Remain would be the one I would steer away from. And Not Even Bones is the first book. If you want to read it just to kind of see what is going on, I would just stop after book 1. Again, when I finish book 3, I'll come back and let you guys know if I feel like it's worth pushing through book 2 to get to book 3. But at this current time, if you read it, just stop at book 1. It's an interesting story. It's an interesting concept for a YA, but I don't think it was executed the way it should have been. So I'm going to start on my wrap-ups, letting you guys know my favorite and my least favorite. I have not been doing star ratings. I do it in my PDF file, but I don't like doing star ratings. I think that until you understand a person's taste and how they feel about a lot of books, you don't really understand their star rating. So I'm not gonna do star ratings. I'm gonna tell you guys my least favorite and my most favorite book of the month, and hopefully that works for you guys, as well as just going over what I liked and disliked about every single book. So thank you guys for watching. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye. I forgot to mention one of the books that I read in January, which was Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. I liked this. This is another YA. I decided to pick this up because I really liked the Strange the Dreamer duology. This was good. We are following a young woman who's in art school, but she also works with a demon who raised her, and she runs errands for him. And most of the story is us and her learning about her history, which she has forgotten. This was good. I'm going to continue. Not an all-time favorite, I don't think, although we need to see how the rest of the trilogy goes. But this is a well-done YA. It lacks the depth of an adult book, in my opinion, and I think I like Strange the Dreamer better. It's a solid start to a trilogy.